And everyone, welcome to the 9 a.m. Tuesday public meeting. Start this with the flag salute if you'd rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Commissioner Mortensen, if you'd review the minutes for us, please.
Gladly, I will do that. As usual, I did review the minutes of the activities last week, and I move to approve those minutes.
Any questions, comments on the minutes? Seeing none, seeing no hands, I call for the vote. Those in favor
Aye.
also vote aye. Consent agenda, kind of go over what we have on here. We have two call for bids that are going out, one for install upgrade of curb warning signs. That project or that bid opening is scheduled for September 12th, and another call for bid for repaving the Cowlitz County parking lot replacement. And that one is scheduled for September 5th. Three different agreements. We have an agreement with Merika Group LLC for the Abernathy Creek Bridge painting project. This actually is a local group that won this award. And two interagency agreements, one with the Washington State Department of Transportation for noxious weed control along SR 405. And another one with the Columbia Land Trust for noxious weed control along easements along Abernathy Creek. We have one resolution. It's a resolution declaring intent to vacate a portion of an unnamed road on Rink Road. This is from what I understand, a 4-part process. The first part is doing a resolution saying, yeah, we'll take a look at this. And then there's 3 other steps that our county engineer goes through, one of those steps being a public hearing. So it's got other steps before this gets to the final point where we would abandon that. But the first step to even get the process started is this resolution. So that's what that is.
Mr. Chairman, that road has never been paved. It's never been used. So that's why the idea is to go ahead and let it go up.
Let it go. Several board correspondence, several things. We have a letter accepting resignation of Tyler Perryman from the Longview Shop. I believe, I'm pretty sure that's a retirement. We have 3 different letters from Drainage Improvement District, Diking Improvement District 15 and Diking Improvement District number 2, giving us 2024 preliminary budget estimates. We have a letter from Mary Jo McGuire. She's president, National Association of Counties, appointing Commissioner Weber as subcommittee vice chair in the Public Land Steering Committee. That's one that's looked at every year. So Commissioner Weber will sit on that for us. 2 letters from the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. They usually send us a letter when we've provided documentation for them. They send us a letter acknowledging they have received that. And then a letter from Angela Vincent, president of the Department of Ecology, Southwest Regional Water Quality Program, reaffirming the signature authority of the county for phase 2 permits. And that usually Susan Eugenius does that for us. And we have to give them, say that she's authorized to do that. And then we have various vouchers in amount of $2,993,620.78. Questions or comments on the consent agenda?
In reverse order, the letter H, that is a letter from Angela Vincent. I noticed the title is Resident of the Department of Ecology Southwest Regional Office. I did not realize that. Please, Mr. Weber, please address that.
Yeah, that's an odd one too.
I beg pardon?
I have no idea.
That seems so terribly strange.
Yeah.
Okay. And then we've been talking about the curve upgrade signs for quite a while. If anybody from Public Works can just give us a little bit of history. What I'm looking for there is for people to understand how the process begins. Like you mentioned, it was a 4-step process for that vacating of the road. This, you would think that we would just decide, oh, this curve needs a sign and you go take care of it. But apparently that isn't how it happens. Does anybody from Public Works wish to address that?
Hi, Chris Andrews here. I can address that if you would like. So yeah, we've started out, we had to do a safety plan to WSDOT to get the funding for it. Put a list of projects together, and this was one of the ones that was chosen. At the same time, we also had a curve project to actually, we had a piece of equipment, we drove all the roads, and that equipment dials in what curves speed is recommended for that road. So we did that for all the county roads, and then we took that information to fit with the available funding to try to hit either major roads or roads that could have detours on them. So for example, like Green Mountain Road, we're going to add a lot of signs on that. Cathlamet Road, because those all have connections to either bypass Ocean Beach Highway, I-5, and we tried to hit any of the roads that have over 1,000 ADT, average daily traffic. So that was how we came up with a list of roads to do.
Oh, I like that. So essentially on this vehicle, you had it instrumented, you had an inclinometer of some kind or a G. You measured the Gs?
Yes, it was a company actually out of Pennsylvania. But yeah, we mounted in one of the county inspector trucks that they recommended using a pickup truck, and they call it an electronic ball bank, which the non-electronic one is just pretty simple. It's a ball that sits on the dashboard and pivots as you go around a corner, and you measure the angle that's on there. So it's pretty much doing that. And gets a comfort speed and gives you the recommended speed limit.
Very nice. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Any other questions? I always thought that was, when I had a motorhome, I always said, well, now that sign makes sense. So I always thought, well, they just use a big old motorhome. That's what they use.
You ready for a motion?
Yes, I am.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve today's consent agenda as presented.
Last chance for questions, comments?
Just another comment, but we'll let Steve.
Yeah.
I mean, Mr. Anonymous speak.
The green light?
Now it's on.
Okay.
I'm looking at the National Association of Counties letter to Mr. Weber. And I'm looking at the last paragraph detailing the committee's work and future meeting dates. One in Washington, D.C. and the other in Hillsborough County, Florida. I take it the county's paying for the transportation costs?
I have to submit a request like we do for all travel.
Well, if you remember the Commissioner Beryl Robinson years ago. Well, she did so much traveling that we weren't even sure she was a commissioner back then. So I'm submitting to the commissioners for a resolution calling for the Beryl Robinson Transportation Award for the commissioner that uses the most money for travel under the county treasury. So I'm submitting that today. Hopefully, she'll be the only one on the award, but apparently, looking at the future here, that won't be the case. So I'm submitting for the county commissioners to have a resolution calling it the Beryl Robinson Travel Award. Thank you.
Last year, we did change the procedure on that. Each of us, if we're going to travel, we submit a request, and it actually takes approval of the commissioners to award that travel. So we did put some controls on it. So I doubt if we, well, never say never, but hopefully nobody ever beat this person.
Well, it would also remind the voters of Cowlitz County that, yes, there is a commissioner, even though he's out traveling most of the time.
Yeah, I have a negative feeling about the resolution or request that you just expressed. Implicit in that is that we would, any three of us here, try to do just random travel on the taxpayer budget, and I don't want to accept that as a premise.
Me either. Any other, didn't you have an additional comment you wanted to?
Oh, I was just going to say on item number 2, that's the which parking lot is that one?
So I think the discussion involved
Multiple.
should have probably said asphalt lots. They want to get the bids, get the best bids, and then apply it to the projects as they're ready to go. We, I think, originally had zeroed in on the Hall of Justice parking lot, but it doesn't take very long to travel around, and there are quite a few parking lots that need some repairs, so.
Yeah, I bring that up because there are, this is not going to be cheap.
Yeah.
And there are, it's part of the overall harping I've done on maintenance, and at some point the bills come due, and this is probably going to be a fairly steep bill.
And we don't want to wait too long because the state may forbid us from using fossil fuels, right?
But there'll be no cars.
But I know the cost of asphalt keeps going up, so.
And just to answer, Sean Roy, Public Works, and to answer your question there, Commissioner Mortensen, the parking lots that'll be on this bid are the south lot of the Hall of Justice, the east lot, and then the parking lots at Health and Human Services.
The parking lots where?
At Health and Human Services on 9th Avenue.
Oh.
Okay. Thank you, Sean.
And just we're talking about several $100,000.
That's correct. I think we estimate a couple $100,000 on this project. I don't have the exact number handy.
Yeah. I hate to let somebody know what we expect to pay before they tell us what they're going to charge us.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, we have a motion on the floor. I would call for a vote. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I also vote aye. Thank you. To motion off. You already knew your seat was there, right, Sean? Go ahead.
Commissioners, today before you, we have a bid award to JL Stordahl and Sons for transportation of rock materials through June 30th of next year to headquarters landfill for a cost not to exceed $231,877.80. This covers all rock delivery to the landfill. It ranges in various sizes for the activity they're doing. They're building roads, gas wells, or other activities. It's a total of 9,350 tons of rock delivered to the landfill over the next year.
And they've been doing this for us for several years.
Yeah, they have won the award over the last few years, and additionally, the contract does not allow them to use South Silver Lake Road, so they do have to go from their pit to I-5 and then back up headquarters, so they're not taking that cutoff road through the county.
Yeah.
Yeah, it bears to repeat that. In the past, the trucks have caused some of the people along the route some vexation, and you've arranged it to be the least impact, and it's in the contract.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So do you know if they're using their pit near Rock Creek on Tower Road? Is that the pit that they're using for most of this rock?
Correct. That's my understanding, that they'll use the pit off of
That's
Tower
probably the
Road.
closest to the.
Geographically would be yes.
But they're not going to check out the temporary bridge on Tower Road.
No, they're this side of it. They're good on that.
I digress, but I talked to a couple people that live up there. They really like that temporary bridge.
They were what, sorry?
They really like that temporary bridge. That's a good thing.
Good.
Any other questions on this?
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the bid award to JL Stordahl and Sons as has been discussed.
Okay. Last opportunity for questions. I see none. I would call for a vote. Those in favor
Aye.
Aye.
also vote aye. Thank you, Sean. Health and Human Services.
Hi, good morning. Gina James, Health and Human Services. On the agenda today, we have a contract with the Washington State Department of Ecology. This is a 2-year contract, so it goes July 1st, 2023 through June 30th of 2025. And this contract is to receive and investigate solid waste complaints in the county, which would be it's oftentimes garbage or vehicles no longer in use, things like that. So we've been involved in this particular contract for a number of years. So this is a new award for the next 2-year grant period.
I hate to assume, but is this like most of the stuff we get from it's a reimbursement thing as we use it and then we ask to be reimbursed for it?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep. And it's primarily for staff time to, like I said, receive solid waste complaints. We get phone calls and emails about reporting different garbage or whatnot around the county, and for
Yeah.
us to go out and investigate and see if we can get a resolution on those.
And how does the state come up with the amount? How do they estimate saying Cowlitz County, this is what you can go up to?
A lot of it is, a lot of times these figures are based on population, some
Stuff like
type
that.
of formula. I'm not exactly sure on this one, but I could try to find more out about that.
Well, it's not a big deal. I was just curious. And it's like
It's pretty
most,
close to 1 FTE a year, isn't it? And $90,000 a year is not gonna buy too many people. So
Right.
1 plus pennies and, office and that allocation. So
Yeah.
probably 1 FTE a year. So it probably adjusts according to their.
according to the, yeah. Any other questions?
Yeah, so I'm trying to understand the scope of what might be handled under this. So there are, despite the fact that we have the most economical or the least expensive landfill fees, people still decide they can only drive so far and then they dump their garbage out on someone's empty lot. Would this trying to solve that problem? Would this handle it?
Potentially, yeah. And what our staff will do is they'll go out, take a look at the site from the road, they'll try to see what they can see from the road and determine if there's a next step that needs to be taken. Sometimes they'll go out and something might be an eyesore, but it's not really
That's a different
huge hazard.
category.
Right. And so we see those things too. Sometimes they're, either on a vacant property or public property, people have dumped garbage or whatnot. It also could be neighbors, complaining about so-and-so down the road is piling up their garbage or have numbers of vehicles in the front yard, those types of things.
Right, that was my next question, but I still want to pursue the first question. So I brought it to EHU's attention, the environmental health unit attention, as I'm walking through some paths, I'll stumble onto a pile of garbage. It has people's names in it and all that. I would like to see them prosecuted. Have we ever done that?
You
I
know,
know I've
with,
requested it.
yeah, I think with our enforcement policies, it often falls back to, we will look at who the property owner is, who's the property owner, and because that's where the garbage is on a particular property. I know in the past, we have looked at, names that have been found on mail or whatever in the garbage that's there, and we could turn it over to law enforcement to try and pursue. That's, it kind of shifts then from our capabilities over to law enforcement.
I think you're telling me it doesn't really happen, that people can dump their garbage and walk away with fair certainty that they won't be pursued.
I'm not sure. I think, maybe we could talk to law enforcement to
Yeah.
see how, what that looks like.
I do recall before I became a commissioner, there was a pretty big case where the county condemned property that was filled with used tires. That became a hazard, a health hazard because of animals, vectors, and mosquitoes.
Mhm.
And we purchased the property and hauled off the
You see, I look at that as a different and a very tough problem also. And we've all gotten plenty of calls of, well, the guy's got his old rusty truck on the lawn and it's ugly. And that person, well, they remodeled and they put the commode out back and they put flowers in it, but it's still a commode and I don't like it. And I don't know how you adjudicate that, but if I drive around and throw my crap on somebody else, partly the law is screwed up. If the garbage is on my property and I didn't place it there, why am I going to be responsible for that cleanup? I'm not in the landfill business anyhow. That's my harangue. I'll continue to repeat it because this is fundamental to the attitude that we have to curb in the public, that anything goes.
Yeah, and we, when it is sort of the property owner that's causing, some issues, we can go down the road of issuing citations, and there's court dates that get set and all of that. That's more rare, and usually, more often it's a reminder about cleaning up and whatnot, and people do that. But yeah, it gets into that when it's on somebody else's property, it gets into that where it sort of shifts from us to law enforcement.
Yeah, and the reason I'm harping on this is because it'll never get fixed if we don't take the leap and say, yeah, it's probably not worth your time in the short run, but in the long run, we really ought to do this. It's almost like the maintenance issue, pay me now or pay me later, but we're talking about a total attitudinal shift of people stop trying to abuse the county and other people. So if you have a choice, I would want you to become extremely nasty.
I think the fancy word for what you're describing is it becomes an attractive nuisance. And more people start piling the same area.
Yeah,
Yeah. Once they see it, it gets piled on. Yeah. Any other questions? Ron?
Two comments, commissioners. Again, the differentiation of the application of law. If we are driving down the highway and a patrolman sees us throw out a piece of paper, they'll find us and end up picking up roads, picking up things, et cetera. We ought to have a similar attitude here in the county in application of littering. Secondly, just weeks ago was when we closed the garbage gathering center out in West Longview, out on the west side. What have we done to mitigate that situation so people show up and have a place, or at least just don't pull over and dump it somewhere?
Yeah, there was an issue where people actually crashed through a fence on the southwest side of Mount Solo, you know, the road that goes up to the mansion, somewhere around
I
there. And
think are you referring to the recycling center out?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
yeah,
And I know Public Works is working on a new site for that. We just haven't, it's just not been set in stone yet, right, Sean?
Right.
Weren't they looking at the county shops out at Baker's Corner as the location?
Oh, okay.
That's a different department. That's not Department of Health, but
Well, it all kind of ties together.
it
You
does.
have
Yep.
recycling, it doesn't go to recycle, so now
Yeah.
it goes to garbage pile.
Yep.
Yeah.
Joe?
And yes, we are working towards a new site. We have run into some zoning issues and other items within the city shop being inside the city of Longview city limits. So we
Okay.
are working forward on that, trying to find a new location for the West Longview Recycle.
Ron, has the garbage continued to pile up at the old site? Or do you know, I don't know if you got there very
It's, last time I was by, it was fenced off and I didn't see any garbage in there.
fenced off. Okay.
and that's where my comment comes in. Somebody just drove through the fence in this other thing, and we had to put, have we installed those much more much harder to drive through fence, like in the logging roads, when they put that steel bar across their tube, your car isn't going to do very well.
I know there was a garbage litter issue on the remains of Memorial Park Drive, which is along a dike at the foot of Mount Solo. And it's an interesting, if you look at the city limits, it crosses back and forth.
Yep,
It's kind
it
of a
does.
jig. So they've just shut that whole road down. So you can't
And they
travel.
intend to keep it that way.
I think so.
Yeah.
It's-
But that's the fence that got crashed through.
Okay.
Excuse me, I think the principle that we're talking about here for taking care of the minor stuff is the broken windows theory that Giuliani used in New York to clean that place up. They started taking care of the small stuff, and then eventually it translated into the bigger stuff. So that's, I think, the principle we're talking about here.
Could you flesh that out a little more? I'm not sure I followed every word.
What you were talking about, taking care of any little piece of garbage
Right.
that we find. Okay, that's the same thing that Giuliani did in New York when he took over. Started with a small crime, whether it's graffiti or whatever it was, and started cracking down on that, and that made a huge difference in the long run.
Yep. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Any other questions, comments? The pleasure of the board.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve contract 23-038 with the Washington State Department of Ecology to provide funding for solid waste, correcting solid waste violations as proposed by staff.
Maybe you meant 23.
From
I thought I heard 22.
2 years, yeah, 2023 to 25.
Right. It's a 2-year contract.
Right, but I heard him say contract 22 dash.
Oh, did I say 22? Okay,
Oh.
oh, sorry.
It's 23 dash.
23.
Clerk probably knows.
Yeah.
Oh,
I see no hands, nobody else approaching. I call for the vote. Those in favor?
Aye.
aye.
I also vote aye. Thank you, Gina. Appreciate it. Let's see, before we get into public comments, we have no meeting this afternoon, no 1:30 meeting this afternoon. We had nothing on our agenda. Wednesday, tomorrow, The airport will be in for our 1:30 meeting if anybody has interest in that. In 23rd, we have risk pool. The 30th, will we have the 30th? Yeah, the 30th, we won't have it. The week of the 28th, Commissioner Mortensen and Commissioner Weber will be gone. So we won't have a quorum, so there won't be a lot of business the week of the 28th. They said I just couldn't do what I wanted, so. And then one other thing I'll mention is on, and I think this will be fun, Tuesday, September 5th, after our public meeting at 9 at 10 a.m., we have Representative McIntyre and Representative and Senator Wilson are going to join us up here with the commissioners, and we're just going to talk over issues, and you'll have the opportunity as an audience to just sit and chat with them and have a public forum. So that's going to be Tuesday, September 5th at 10 o'clock. We'll do that. They've agreed to come in, and I think it'll be fun just to talk with them and talk over Olympia and what they see. Any other comments, gentlemen, before I turn it to the public? Okay, open for public comment. It's all yours.
I guess on the, excuse me, on the, boy, I gotta get rid of this out of my throat here. The, I'm not opposed to the contract you just approved or anything, but just for information, it seems like, even though part of that's going to be reimbursed from Ecology or whoever, the matter of responsibility that if you find garbage on the side of the road and now we're paying the county or somebody's going to pick it up and you find a name attached to it, for that not to get prosecuted and have the cost of that put back on the person who put it there, seems to me like, you know, it's just a matter of they're not accepting responsibility when they put it along the side of the road or on somebody else's property. And we're just condoning that by not somehow following through and getting either law enforcement and or a prosecuting attorney off their butt to say, hey, this is not okay. We've got to make people responsible. And the broken windows, Rudy Giuliani concept is a great example of how, look at New York right now, how bad things can get if you don't stop it when it's minor. It's going to get major because they, just like a little kid, they'll just keep pushing to find out where the boundaries are. And if there's no boundaries, we're all going to be paying for it.
One of the interesting challenges we always have is how many people do we have to hire to patrol the streets looking for garbage? And that's, you know, and it ends up being very expensive. So we have a staff with that responsibility to follow up on complaints that get turned in. And that's kind of the level of enforcement that we're at. It's based pretty much on complaint basis, and they follow up as best they can. We've also learned that in the legal system, if you don't have an eyewitness to the crime being committed, it's pretty tough to convict anybody beyond a reasonable doubt, because I don't know where that came from. It has my name on it, but I threw it in the garbage. I threw it away, you know, so and that's been some of the frustrations we've had and why it takes so long to actually go through the prosecution. So it is frustrating. Either you increase enforcement by having more people, or you reach an accommodation on the appropriate level. We have staff. We have the staff and this system here with that responds to the complaints, and they have to use their judgment. Is it a one person's treasure is another person's junk syndrome? We can't answer that. There's not much we can do about that. Or is there a public health threat? And I mean, ultimately, that's where the power comes from.
Well, whether you have 1 or 100 patrolling the roads, I don't think is the question. The question is once you find the problem, one person finds a problem, a matter of following up on it and trying to figure out, maybe there's going to be some complications on what you can or cannot prosecute. But, and I don't propose you got to put cameras on every street corner either. but somewhere, somehow, following back up with we found this in the garbage at such and such a location, and at least go talk to that person and make them aware of the fact that we found this garbage, and get their response to the issue, and maybe embarrass them enough they won't do it a second time. Now, I don't know that that'll work, but I don't know that it won't either. Somewhere, somehow, some way we got to follow back up and put a little pressure on people.
And I think they used to in the past, because I can remember two instances, and these are both from the 80s. One, I was working for a bank up in Federal Way, and one of our employees worked in the credit card department. He was driving out to a branch and he smoked, and you're not supposed to smoke in bank vehicles, but he was. And he threw the cigarette butt out. Well, somebody reported the license plate Department of Ecology, and US Bank got a letter, and they weren't happy about it. So, and then another time we had, and this is also in the 80s, somebody stole our garbage, and we lived out by Black Diamond, and we got a letter that we were going to serve these fines if we didn't pick up this garbage. Well, my wife went out and picked it up, and she found somebody else's name mixed in with it, and she was ticked. She went right to their door, and she was not happy about that. So I think they used to take quicker steps. I don't know if you can still call if you see that happening and they'll send a letter or not, but I'm not disagreeing with you at all, Steve. I think, yeah, if you can catch it in the bud, it helps.
So one of the things that all of us handle are those kinds of constituent comments that call in. And we probably all have the environmental health unit on speed dial. They may say, we're constantly going through that process and doing what we can. And sometimes they have a quick response, and sometimes it ends up being more complicated. So
Yeah, you're correct. We don't have the means to follow everybody, nor do we want cameras and all that. But once we have it in hand, for the examples that the chairman described, I wanted to expend as much effort as required to make that so darn uncomfortable, and have the daily news pick it up and say, look at what the commissioners are doing. That's the Giuliani effect. I mean, you've got to start someplace, but we can't just always, and to start someplace, you have to pick the case that you're going to press. And the bird in the hand is always the right one.
Well, I know from personal experience for years, my hunting buddies and I, we used to camp up at Locomotive Lake. We got a permit every year, and the timber companies changed that property up there, changed hands several times, but we always got a permit. Pretty soon, you couldn't camp in there. First, they just moved it back away from the lake. They put a gate up there. And I asked why. Well, because too many people are leaving garbage at the lake. Well, every year during hunting season, me and my buddies, one black guy would sit in the truck idling down the road, and two of us would walk down the road, one in each ditch, picking up beer cans, beer bottles, all the garbage we could pick up. We'd sort it out, bring it to town so it could be recycled or thrown away. So now here we were cleaning up garbage. And when we found somebody's name or mail, there was a security guard. He was a retired county sheriff. I can remember talking to this guy numerous times. And we gave him the mail. On a couple of occasions, knew of a father and a son that drove in on a closed logging road, and they went in there with their rifles and shot out the windows on a loader and shot holes in the radiator. And when I gave that information to that retired county sheriff, who's now a security guard, and said, "What are you going to do about this?" I'm locked out of my normal hunting area because of garbage. And I've sat here and wrote down license numbers of 10 cars that drove around your gate and went on in there anyway. And I give you the license numbers. What do you do about any of this? They won't do jack crap about it because the timber companies are afraid that they'll get their wood set on fire if they prosecute somebody for dumping their garbage out there. And I'm going, you're afraid to you locked up the lake, but we can't camp there anymore. Now they don't give permits to camp overnight on their land at all. And now I got to pay a $300 a year permit to get on their land. And it drives me crazy that This is like, you don't see a Washington State patrolman put a damn roadblock up on Interstate 5 because one person is speeding. If you don't prosecute the one person, then the problem just multiplies, and the people that are following the law are the ones who get punished by it. Anyway.
Exactly right. And the corollary to that is all the shoplifting that now takes place. Apparently, it's okay to walk in and walk out without paying.
Although we did hear numbers on Monday that the number of people in jail because of shoplifting has skyrocketed. They've started enforcing the law, so hopefully we'll see some.
We're here?
Yeah.
In Cowlitz County?
Yeah,
It's
numbers have increased. I think I wanted to say high 200s or low 300s to high 600s.
Those aren't all, just that's total jail, folks in the jail, so. There's been a pointed effort, particularly in the city of Longview, to get people for, stealing shopping carts, shoplifting, illegal camping. Those are the biggest increases in jail occupancy.
A real question, yeah, the number is 649, but those weren't really unique individuals. That was unique instances. So if I shoplifted 12 times, I would be 12 entries into 649. And in 2022 was 342 doing shoplifting, and between January and July, and in 23 it's 649. But we don't know what's happening post that. So for a lot of people, we don't have 649 people in jail.
Yeah, I'm sure of that.
And because you gladly pay for them to have a public defender, it's almost no cost out of their pocket.
I'll leave that one alone. Thank you.
Well, before you go, with your permission, I was going to say, we face a pretty big issue. And we've been, the Superior Court is wanting to add another judge, a sixth judge, and that's something we'll have to weigh in on at some point. So I hope the public will chime in and let us know what they think.
I'd say for what? If they're gonna just turn them loose when they get into the courtroom, then you don't need another judge.
We need to
just put up
find
a-
out a lot of information.
Just put up a damn flagger sign that says slow down, and as they use the court for a revolving door. Anyway.
Ian?
So anyway, on a positive note, I know that's scary for come from me, but I've had this experience here locally where a place where I used to go walk the dog every day. You had to park at a gate and then you could walk, but you could do it. I wasn't breaking the law. Anyway, one day where I parked, big pile of garbage there. And so Pete's box is there. You can see the little address on it. Part of it was smeared a little bit though, but I read it and I was like, I'm going to get these guys, I was pissed. So I was plotting on those guys. Anyway, a couple days later, county crew is in there and they're picking it all up. And so they went through it and they found a couple of different addresses, but they found the culprit because I talked to them while they were at some point there and gave me the breakdown of it. And he said, yeah, it was this house, over here. And we've already been over and given them a citation through the sheriff. You know what I mean? The county guys got the sheriff went over and gave him a citation. So that part of the system, at least in my view of it, is that I have seen that working. So I think our county crew, and it's a just blanket statement. The more I get to know the county offices and stuff, I think everything's running pretty darn good. It's for the most part.
So the only thing I would offer on that is that then the consequence to the perpetrator has to be at least equal to, but preferably multiplied by the gain. So maybe they gained something by throwing the garbage there. Maybe it's a garbage fee of $10 at the dump they saved in half hour of their time, but it cost us a whole bunch more. I'd like that whole bunch more to be the base for the fine? You have to at least reimburse all of that.
Well, not dig too deep into it, but oddly, what they had there in garbage was mostly recycling stuff. And from where their house was, the recycling station is just a couple blocks away. They 99% of what they dumped there could have easily just been a couple blocks away. They could have just dumped it there and been okay. So anyway, that's kind of funny. However, when you start talking about all them crime rate and stuff, and that the city of Longview is now, giving guys a hard time for shopping carts and that kind of thing. Well, I believe I've sat here and said the Tim plan, and it's good to see Longview is finally listening. You know what I mean? They've kind of cleared out the park, and now if they're hassling them over shopping carts, I've mentioned that exact item many times. So glad to see they're finally taking my advice.
So if I want a bus ticket to LA, all I have to do is steal a shopping cart?
No, see, that's not part of the Tim plan. The Tim plan was to enforce the basic rules, just the laws we have on the books, and they'll leave on their own. They just will. You make them
Yeah.
uncomfortable. There's not a place to stay here. They'll go on their own, and it doesn't cost us anything. That's the Tim plan.
Good morning. Good morning, Commissioners. Will Tosted, Facility Service Manager. I had an item tabled from last week. Would this be the time to discuss?
Yeah, sorry about that. You did have a tabled item.
We're all at fault.
Yeah,
I thought it was being tabled another week. That's what we were told. So
no,
you're ready, yeah?
sorry, Will, go ahead.
No, it's okay. I'm ready. Last week we discussed Northwest Controls. We went out to on-call. We went out to bid and received bids for an on-call mechanical contractor. This is an essential, part of county operations, especially on days like today. Mechanical units in this area can only handle so much when we have extreme heat such as today. An on-call mechanical contractor that is, trained in order to handle these issues is an important part of business in county operations. I had a couple questions from commissioners and the public last week that I'd like to go through and address. The first question that I'd like to go through is how much we previously spent in 2022 for HVAC services. I went ahead and did that research. The four main local contractors that we called were Entech, Rawhide, Northwest Controls, and Capital Heating and Cooling. And we spent approximately $70,000 on services. The on-call contract that went out is up to $100,000. So we're in the ballpark. Next question is for the contract. When does billing start for the contract? I had a conversation with the contractor, and it's from, as they stated, portal to portal or job to job. So as soon as they leave, I believe you asked that question, sir, and it's when they leave the last job to our location for an emergency situation. For a non-emergency situation, it would be, from their shop, billing would start to when they get to our location. The next.
You said they have several offices here, one local or somewhere else. I believe. Portal to portal is generic, meaning is that they have offices and other things.
No, so they're stationed out of Portland, Oregon. Portal means whatever job they are on. So if they're 20 minutes away, great. If they're 5 minutes away, even better. But if it's an emergency situation, for instance, if the jail mechanical went out today and I called emergency, we get billed from where they are at to where they get here because they're a union shop, and that's according to their contract. Nope. Portal to portal is how it was defined to me. Correct. The next question was per contract, what was the wage per hour for HVAC services? That is $175 an hour, which is pretty standard for HVAC services across the board. The next question I'd like to address is what is the response time for a county emergency? The contract states that it would be for an emergency situation within 3 hours. Standard job request in a non-emergency situation would be within 2 days. And those are the questions from last week that I had to do a little research and get the answers to.
Thank you.
So 3 hours for emergency and 2 days for non-emergency?
Correct. And I've called them in emergency situations before and they got out here sooner, but per contract, it's within 3 hours, correct?
I wasn't here last week, so I defer.
And that was not to exceed 100,000.
Not to exceed.
It's always a difficult thing and I'm so focused on price, but it's not, if we're discussing about difference in price, it's not $100,000. It's whatever else we might have gotten from other bids. And so it's a discussion that seems like 100,000, but it's actually maybe 10,000.
Yeah.
And it's work that really needs to be done. So I appreciate the answers and I would move to approve the bid award to HVAC services of Northwest Control.
Okay. We got a motion to approve. Any
Not
last?
to exceed $100,000.
As discussed.
Yeah.
As discussed last week.
See no hands. I see nobody approach. Steve? Yeah, okay.
So I don't think I understood. What was the amount of money spent in 2022?
70,000 approximately.
70,000. Okay. I thought you said 7,000. I was gonna say.
No,
that's a hell of a
70.
Change. Okay.
Yeah, and I do expect that to go down. The county is in the process of doing some major mechanical upgrades across the county, several buildings. And with new units, I expect maintenance costs to go down.
Okay. See no hands, no others. I call for a vote. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Also vote aye. Thanks, Will. Once
Thank you.
again, apologize for missing that. Any other public comments? Okay, remember, there's no meeting this afternoon. See no else approach, we will adjourn. Thank you.
Thank you.